Okay, final presentation for the day before we hit the malls. Today what I'm presenting on is on a simulation which the Civil Service College created about 2 years back. You don't normally say civil service and games or simulations in the same breath, but it's something which you find is very powerful in bringing out certain emotions which we want participants to experience. In the interest of time, I'm just going to go straight into a video which will show you the gameplay of the simulation which we created. And basically, the simulation was created to create awareness on the need for empathy among policymakers. And the target audience are future policymakers, they are management associates within the civil service. And we find that given an increasingly complex global environment, a much more emboldened and vocal citizenry, it's very important for them to be able to understand and gain some skills in terms of emotional resilience to be able to deal with the very emotive aspects of policymaking. Because the challenges which they face nowadays are no longer technical or analytical, and there are very significant socio-emotional dimensions, which means that they are required to think and act with empathy.
Features of the policy simulation is basically a scenario that's written and given to the participants, and the scenario is based on as much of a realistic policy dilemma as we possibly can. So the participants are divided to 9 stakeholder roles that they need to play during the game. There are 3 key moves and 3 queries that they will be playing throughout the day, and along the way we will also give them some injects that changes the scenario. So the idea is that as a stakeholder, how do they respond to this changing scenario of the game?
Basically, it allows us to be associated with a different group, and we will all brief on the overall scenario as well as our positions, gender, and some more background. The scenario progresses from one plenary to another, and at each move, they call it 3 moves, there was an update to what we should know and what we should be preparing for. For example, we just concluded a town hall meeting where we needed to present our positions as if a real situation was unfolding. There was also somewhat of a media inject. I would say that was useful because I think in real life situations are not static and things progress. So we were given time to also discuss our positions and change our positions along the way to position ourselves better.
You really start to see how a certain policy was enacted in a different environment, all the different people and all the different types of roles that are out there in society. So this just shows the highlight, as a policymaker, when you put some people power to react to, and you need to be aware of the effects it's going to have on the ground, and that's why simulation exercise highlights the importance of empathetic policymaking.
The real thing it really draws out is the difficulties of the different agencies. You have to engage early, otherwise you will always be criticized. It's also difficult to engage because you're also raising expectations. When you ask people for their opinions, I guess people also then expect you to take them on board. And so this was a very fine balancing act between in terms of managing expectations, which I think was drawn out very clearly during today's workshop.
But have they engaged? Have they really heard you?
What makes us, how can you guys think that we will be able to trust you to continue with this process by a constructive way?
Experiential learning as one means to deliver the objective, which is to get you to think about different perspectives, to get you to think about how different agencies work together, and I think very importantly in the Villa Rose exercise, to look at how the group dynamics or the dynamics between different agencies and different stakeholders actually play out through the exercise.
It's something that really comes close to what they experience every day. So I think it helps us, when it comes to doing policy, we have to really put ourselves in their shoes to see how we can mitigate these concerns, these challenges to them, how we can make the disruption as minimal as possible, and experience exercise to highlight these tensions and concepts.
You start to see how people react, and they start to be competitive, and really brings about the spirit of what would happen in the real world. You can't control everything. You've got a different overriding goal. It's just very interesting to see how one party party reacts to another party, which adapts reforms, then another thing happens. Especially when the injects come in, it's interesting.
I think what's good about the whole simulation exercise is that it forces you to take the perspective of the stakeholder you are in. So it tries to bring you out through the norm of how you would usually think as a policymaker or whatever you're in. I think what's fun is also is trying to there's this element of reality that's trying to be infused into it, where there's discussion, where you're supposed to have interagency meetings and try and engage your fellow stakeholders and even within the team. So that brings out a lot of reality, which is good.
It's highly experiential, highly emotive. It gets participants very involved in their role. We have seen some very emotional outbursts during our policy gaming, and it really creates an awareness that although for example, public engagement can be seen as a very simple tool, very simple as a concept, but when you actually implement something like that, it does involve a high level of EQ in a person. I think that this game is able to bring out that level of EQ quite strongly among participants.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump straight into some of the things which we provide participants with to allow them to immerse better into the scenario. Because we find that the more they are able to immerse themselves in the scenario, the more they are able to express their own emotions when playing this game. So basically, for this game, it's broken up into 3 moves, 3 plenaries. Participants take on the hats of different stakeholders, and they are required to play out the scenario to explore the dynamics and relationships between each stakeholder, to try to understand the assumptions and cognitive biases each stakeholder has. So in order to further enhance their experience, we engage them visually by providing them not only with the scenario note, but with actual maps which we drew out to give them a better idea of where the scenario is taking place, at what situation are they being put in. Apart from this, we also decorate the rooms. We provide flags, for example, for the stakeholders who are playing the Member of Parliament, the opposition parties. We provide them with the shopping directory for those who are playing the role of the shop owners. We also give them this persona sheet, which helps them to further immerse into the game. We get them to create their own personas, to take ownership of their roles, and when they do so, we find that it's a lot easier for them to be more expressive when it comes to the big town hall discussions with each other. They are provided with move instructions, which give them certain objectives to fulfill, but it also gives them space to create certain assumptions and claims, to enable them to express their own creativity, to be able to give them a bit of space for a bit of fun and adventure. We also provide them with newspaper articles to set the context of the year which they're playing in. In fact, they're playing the year 2022. The reason we push them to a futuristic scenario is for them to move out of their current mentalities, to be able to think in a bigger space, to think out of the box. And we also do out mock emails for them from their bosses, just to simulate a real world environment. And we also provide them with injects in the form of a newspaper article and also an actual news report. This turns the story on its head to allow them to see how do they react to a changing scenario, which in real life it always occurs very often. And subsequently with the town hall sessions, during the town hall sessions there are a lot of cross-team debates that go on. People question each other's motivations. People question why the government agencies take a certain stand, and why do they not think for the people on the ground. So these town hall sessions are the ones which really bring out very strongly what people feel, and participants then understand that when they roll out policies in future, it's very important to think, to wear the lenses of those on the ground, to wear the lenses of your citizens, and think about how your policies would affect them. As many of us like to say, policy making is actually implementation. And finally, as many of us who attended Professor Crocto's session yesterday, we understand the importance of debriefing. It's something which we also recognize. A 3-step debriefing process which we conduct after the simulation session. A large group debrief by the chief facilitator, where the key questions she poses to participants are, what are you feeling at this point in time? To get them to express their own emotions, to get them to share about the frustrations which they feel as a result of not being heard by the government agency, or the frustration which the government agencies feel as a result of not being able to reach out to your own citizens on the ground. This is followed by a small group sharing session, a World Cafe session, whereby we try to bring out the applicability of the simulation to their area of work. So the question we should ask them is, how would playing this simulation help to influence their decisions next time when they go on to become future policymakers? And this really gets them to think about the importance of engagement, the importance of empathetic policy making, which is very key to implementing successful policies. And finally, we round it off by having a question and answer with subject matter experts. These are people we bring in who are actual policymakers, who have experience of facing challenges which the participants also face while playing the simulation. Some of the themes which are being brought up are things like complexity, sense-making, risk management, challenging their own assumptions, and cognitive biases. We find that this game is very dynamic in the sense that it can be held for different kinds of causes. So for example, we play this during courses on public engagement, we play this during courses on complexity issues as well. And finally, in terms of feedback, we have run this about 20 over times, and each time the feedback comes back, our participants really appreciate the fact that they're able to be put through this scenario, to be put in a very risk-free environment where there are no real-world repercussions, and they can test their own ideas and their own assumptions and see what the results are within a very safe space. And with that,